That's my baby. I'm dying. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
Left, feet left.
What the hell was that?
Oh, yeah!
What the fuck are you talking about?
In a land unbeknown. Every time I hear that intro, I feel like I got to be like epic with a, anyway, you know what it is. It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, joined as always by my guy Brandon, and we have a family member now. Once or twice you're just a guest. Come on here as often as you do, talk as often as you do with us, Hunter. You are now family. So, Hunter Doyle from the Philly Insider Podcast. How's it going, brother?
Hey, appreciate that, man. You guys have always been family on my channel too, and it's been cool seeing you guys grow from where you started to where you are now. And I just love talking birds with you guys and talking anything with you guys. So appreciate y'all.
Definitely. Now, this is Philly the podcast. We are on A2D Radio today. Every Saturday you can catch us here 1:00. Today we're going to talk about the roster. All right, we're going to talk about the defensive depth chart. Last time that me and Hunter were on here for the offense, we went through the whole offense, kind of picked who we would start and who we saw, where we saw them. Before we get into the defensive, all that and every player, there's like 5,000 players we're probably going to talk about. We haven't talked for a while. Brandon, Hunter, none of us have really talked for a while. And a lot has happened, right? So can you kind of give me just a little – where are we at now? How are you feeling the past week and everything? How are my guys doing? We'll start with you, Brandon. Anything happened that's really stuck out to you this week or anything? Just how you feeling, man? How you been?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. A lot has happened since the draft. I feel like we did it big for the draft, and then it's kind of been like quiet since then. Like we haven't really digested or talked about everything that's transpired since then. I'm getting that false sense of hope right now, like that I'm starting to see people talk to the media. I'm seeing the players talk. I'm seeing the coaches talk, and I'm starting to get hyped up all over again. And I mean that's the goal of it, right? I mean, we're fans of this team, and we gotta hope that this team is going to play well and not just play crappy all year like last year. I'm feeling good. I mean, with the stuff, I know we'll get into it with the defense and with the new defensive coordinator and Gannon and kind of like what he was talking about and stuff, but I guess just to start off right now, I have hope. I have a good feeling about this team for some reason, and we'll see what happens as the season transpires.
Yeah, I mean, going off of that, I was at my sister's graduation yesterday, and her buddy pulled out – he's a big Philly sportsman. He pulled out Trust the Process. He pulled out, Rocky Balboa quote, and then he finished up his speech with the rent is due every day. So I was just like,
this was an actual speech. This was like
actual graduation speech.
That's awesome.
I know awesome. It was awesome. Everyone was loving it. So when he pulled out the Jalen Hurts quote, I mean that was only like a few days ago. So he must have added it in like last second to his speech. But like you, Brandon, I mean, I'm really getting excited right now. That I mean, like Gannon said, it's Philadelphia when he said why he came here. Siriannis were over there wearing a Brandon Graham shirt during practice. I also just love the new practice fits in general too, like the t-shirts and all that. They look fresh. But like it's a new era of Eagles football right now. There's not a lot of faces that we can say have been here for a long time, and it's just exciting to me. Like I do miss some of the old guys, but more so, I'm just so excited to see what we will see in this team and like what we're going to find out about a lot of these guys. We're going to find out what they're made of and who they are over the next year or two. So I'm super excited, and the press conferences have been really encouraging to me. Obviously, during the season, we'll be like, why did Jonathan Gannon put this guy on this guy in this situation? And, that'll happen at some point. But overall, I mean, this is like we're on the high right now. Like this is really good so far. And I love the culture they're building.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to become. I don't think anybody really knows what we can become or what we will be this year, but they are saying everything that I want to hear. Like literally, even down to Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts is being confident without being too combative. Like he's not coming out here and being like, oh, I'm that guy and we're going to come out here and win the Super Bowl. But he's saying, just wait. just wait. You know what I'm saying? Just give us that shot. And that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to see. So it has been a while since I've been on A2D. So let me remember that I do have to, help pay the bills real quick. So I do want to give a shout out to the sponsor for the show, Body Check Wellness, a line of products that promote wellness, balance, and recovery by using the full potential of health. You can use the promo code A2D for 20% off of your order at bodycheckwellness.com. So we're going to get into this defense. All right, we're going to start with the defensive tackles. Actually, we're going to start with the defensive ends because I feel like you just had an interview with someone that just joined the team. So why don't we kind of start there, and then we'll go from there. So let me know what you kind of took away from, because it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was Jaquan Bailey.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That you just spoke with. So kind of what was the feel that you got speaking to him? Because I know once you talk to somebody, you can kind of tell their personality and you can kind of pick at them a little bit more. So what was the feel that you got speaking to him?
Well, first off, I mean, we'll get to this later, but my man, you interviewed Jacoby Stevens. We got to talk about that defensive back position. But yeah, so just talking to him, I think the coaching staff is just, he talked about some guys who I didn't even know their names with the coaching staff. Just like going really in depth with it. Just again, that culture they're building, the coaching staff they got there, just from the people he's talked to, I think he's really excited to be a part of this organization and the defensive line specifically. Like I think Tracy Rocker, I didn't talk to him a ton about Tracy Rocker, but I do think that he's really going to like Tracy. And just from the conversation he's had with him so far, like he's been talking to the Eagles for a little while since like the draft process and all that. So this is a place he was definitely thinking about coming to. And as an undrafted free agent, it says a lot when one guy, he really wants to go somewhere and he picks that place. So I do think the Eagles were interested in him, but at the same time, I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was that he's really excited to come here and just be part of the coaching staff and learn from the guys on the defensive line too. We interviewed him before Kerrigan even got there. So that's going to be huge for him just to learn, him and the other young guys to learn from a guy like that. So
definitely. Yeah, and kind of going off of that, Tracy Rocker and everything. I know you posted something on the IG, Brandon, kind of talking about what Brandon Graham was talking about Tracy Rocker and how excited he is. So kind of give me and I want to ask you as well, Hunter, but Brandon, you start and kind of tell me how you feel about this coaching staff, because we're hearing a lot of good things. And like you said, Hunter, they're going very in depth. There's a lot of names that are kind of putting their hand into the development of these players. So what is kind of like your feeling so far right now?
Yeah, we still have to obviously wait and see what happens. But when you have leaders like Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox going, that Rocker is one pushing all of them. He's not saying, oh, you're a veteran, I'm not going to come after you. Like he's going full intensity to all of them. And guys like Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox that come out and said that they respect that and that he fits right in and that he's going to help this defensive line with a bunch of young players really develop. And I'm hoping that's the case, because one of our strong suits since even like back in the early 2000s has been our defensive front. We've always had good defensive linemen, tackles, DNs, whatever. And hopefully this tradition of building that defensive line, because obviously Howie Rosen makes a statement that that's what he likes to do. He likes to build in the trenches, and hopefully that comes to fruition. Hopefully, like guys like Milton, who gets drafted in the 3rd round, ends up being good. I even talked to like Hollis Thomas about Milton, and he said there was one concern about him getting off blocks, but with that guy's pure athleticism, maybe that's just stuff that can be coached, that you can develop new moves and stuff like that. So I mean, obviously we have to wait and see, especially with our linebackers, because I feel like isn't our linebacker coach the youngest one on the team, I believe. So that's going to be really interesting to see when it comes to at least the preseason to start it off.
Thanks.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that Hollis Thomas interview, go check that out. He's hilarious. So, I mean, yeah, going off of that, like you said, like I feel good about the kind of heads of the coaching staff, like Sirianni, Gannon. I'm not too sure what to think about Steichen so far, but going on the defensive side, like you said, Tracy Rocker, talked a lot about him. I definitely think I don't think it's gonna be much different with how they just kind of build from the trenches these next few years and how he develops these guys. Like he developed a lot of guys at the collegiate level who might not have gone on to have amazing NFL careers, but that wasn't his job. His job was to get those guys ready to play on Saturdays. And, I think you're you're going to see a lot of development. We have a young defensive line behind some of the big names there. A lot of guys who we don't know what they're made of yet. And like you said, Milton's going to be a big question mark this year because we know, he played on the interior a lot last year, but I heard that he dropped down to 260 because he thought he was going to be playing edge, but then they needed guys because of injury and all that. Now he's back up to 284. And like you said, Brandon, like the raw athleticism that Hollis Thomas was talking about, that's legit. Like you can coach up a guy like Milton Williams. So I like the defensive line situation right now from a roster perspective and from coaching staff perspective. But like you said, like the linebackers coach, I think it's Nick Rallis. I forget if that's his name or not. But yeah, another guy, like we don't really know what to think of him yet. He's been around a little bit, but not really much of it. I believe he coached at Northwestern, if I'm not mistaken. And then I believe we lost our defensive backs coach when we first hired him. It was Jay something. And then we have a new guy in there now. So, and that's like the most ailing position right now. So that's what really concerns me. We'll get to that for sure. But I do like Gannon. I think he's going to make an impact on the other coaches as well as the team. So I trust him with the defense moving forward, not just this year, but in the future. We'll see. He might have a head coaching job sooner rather than later, though. So
that's a fact. Yeah, that's the only thing that kind of worries me about the NFL in general, not really just our teams, is like, when you have very good coaching, you don't necessarily have it for that long. And that might be what kind of ruined the 2017 thing. We won't get into that, but let's get into the defensive end position. All right. So last year, we obviously went into the year thinking that Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett were going to be the two guys at that edge position. We did go ahead and add Orion Kerrigan. So how do you guys see that kind of shaking up? We got Josh Sweat. I think we still have Joe Osman. Obviously, like we just talked about, Jaquan Bailey is a part of the team, Taryn Jackson. Who do you think is going to really make an impact on that edge position? Brandon, we'll start with you, and then we'll go down to Hunter.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go on a limb and say the guy that we're paying $10 million to, and that's Derek Barnett. I feel like this is a year that he's going to want a bigger contract. He's going to want longevity. And the only way you do that is by killing it, playing well, and staying healthy. I'm praying that with new coaches, new stuff, that most of these guys can stay healthy. We've been on a curse the last 4 years when it comes to health. And I feel like Derek Barnett, when he flashes, it's taken back by either getting hurt or silly penalties that he gets. I feel like he gets a lot of roughing penalties after the play. So I'm thinking that he's going to have a big year this year, really lean onto – because Brandon Graham's getting old. I love Brandon Graham, and I'm sure he's going to give it his all. But even he says this is his time to kind of pass it down, kind of teach these new guys the ways and really instill in them how to stay on the team for longevity, how to be there for a long time. And so I know that he's going to work hard. I know Ryan Kerrigan's going to work hard, but we got to rely on who we drafted a couple years ago to be that next guy, that first round pick. And that's Derek Barnett, in my opinion.
That shouldn't be a limb. I'm just going to throw that softball out there. That should definitely not be a limb, but I definitely feel you. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I agree. I mean, I'm excited. You kind of covered Derek Barnett. I'm excited for, what's up, Tom? We have, Brandon Graham's obviously going to be the main guy. And I'm excited to see he's getting older, but he's coming off one of his best seasons and as a pro. So can he follow it up? Will he build upon that? Josh Sweat, I've been a big Josh Sweat guy for a while. And, another guy is with more consistent playing time. Can he prove that he's one of our guys? Because he's going to be the third guy probably, but he's still going to play a ton of snaps. And I think he'll probably see an increase in snaps from last year even. And then, yeah, like you said, we still got Joe Osman, but after that, it's and Kerrigan too. But after those four guys, it's who's going to get that fifth spot if we keep five guys? I honestly, my guy who I think is going to get it, I think is Taryn Jackson, who we drafted in the 6th round. I really like that pick. And, he's a guy, he's really good at winning inside. He has a really good swim move. And he had 4 forced fumbles. He has a nose for the football too. That's a guy who you want a guy who can kind of change the complexion of a game with a turnover like that late in the game. And I definitely think that he could be the 5th guy and kind of be a rotational piece. He doesn't have a variety of pass rush moves, but you don't necessarily need that from your 5th guy. You need someone who can come in every once in a while. I'm not saying he's going to be that Chris Long type of guy. I think that's going to be more so Ryan Kerrigan, but a guy who, if there's an injury 1 week or something, he can come in and get snaps off of the bench. So I like his effort. I like his competitiveness. I think he has an inspiring story with his brother too. I'm really excited to see if Taryn Jackson can earn playing time this year, if he plays special teams a little bit, and what he can do down the road. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think defensive line in general and offensive line development-wise has been one of my least concerns, probably, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, we weren't the greatest the past couple years developing, if you want to look at Derek Barnett. But if you look at like Josh Sweat, Josh Ostman was apparently J.J. Watt on the practice squad, and so let me not talk, Jay. But so we can build our lines. I don't feel too nervous about that. I do like Taryn Jackson, and we do have a lot of depth. If I had to pick, obviously I do want to see Derek Barnett play well, but I think, and I don't want to kind of piggyback off of you, Brandon. I kind of want to make my own decision, but I feel like he has to be the guy. Like like you said, at $10 million, like you have a target on your back. If you're just as good as somebody like Taryn Jackson, why are you here? I think that's the question you have to ask. And if you're Tracy Rocker, if you're anybody that's working with this defensive line, you kind of have to ask yourself the same question and say, like, do I want to teach somebody that's making $10 million that should probably know it by now, right? Or do I want to just take this guy that we got in the 6th, 7th round, we're paying like $600,000 to, and I can go get another veteran like a Ryan Kerrigan that can help me teach him. You know what I'm saying? At a cheap clip. Because if you really look at it, we got Taryn Jackson, we got Ryan Kerrigan, and what is I know Brandon Graham's getting paid, but either way, and Josh Sweat. If you want to bring those three together, right? Those three will probably give us more production than Derek Barnett. And they're all, if you combine their money, they're not hitting 10 mil. Right. So it's and it's a clean cut. That's the weirdest thing about this. I kind of understand, not giving him an extension because, like, it is a clean cut. So even if it is a post-June thing that you're just like, hey, one of these guys can take their spot, we got $10 extra million. Maybe it opens something up for a trade down the line. But he has to be the guy. He has to be the guy that comes out here and really balls out. Brandon Graham too. Brandon Graham definitely needs to come out here and ball. I'm gonna say Josh Sweat is probably my favorite guy right now, though. I feel like we've been on him, and maybe it's fair, maybe it's not, maybe we're hyping him up because he's our player, but I feel like we've been waiting for him to break out for so long. Whether it's injuries, whether it's lack of play time, he hasn't really done it yet. So I would love to see Josh Sweat really come in here and ball out. I mean, we've heard that they're going to be rotating players. You know what I'm saying? He kind of was pretty obvious about that. That was a question that we all had. So I'm with you guys. I think we are going to go 5 deep. So we said Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat, and Ryan Kerrigan. So who's the 5th guy? You're saying Taryn Jackson is your 5th guy.
Yep.
Hunter, what do you think, Brandon?
I'm going to piggyback on that. I liked, like you said, that was a good pick in the draft. I feel like our later picks, even the last 2 years, our later picks have been decent picks. And if it goes based off like last year with the offensive lineman that came in and helped out, maybe Taryn can be that guy that comes in as that rotational piece, like you said, and is able to keep up. And I know that they're moving Jannard Avery to linebacker, but that might not mean that he's not going to play DN either. So we got to look out for him too, because there are times where all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, that's why we traded for him. And then he'll just disappear for a long time again. But we can't sleep and say that, oh, he's not going to be there. So he potentially could be another piece right there.
Yes.
Facts. Big facts. All right, so we're going to move on to defensive tackle now. Defensive tackle, I think it's the top. Again, we're top heavy. So you got Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. I think we all can agree that they should be the top 2 here. And then from there, you got Hassan Ridgeway. You got Milton Williams, AD Jr. You got Aaron Donald Jr. So you got Marlon Tiapalatu. Hopefully I said that name right. Tiapalotu. Look, I messed it up too. So. There we go. So I was close. Hey, I'll take it. And then we got T.Y. Miguel and Raekwon Williams. We will be, mixing guys in. So I guess the top 2 is pretty easy. I guess the question I should ask is Hassan Ridgeway safe to say he's that 3rd guy? Or do you think one of these guys can probably push him? Maybe like a Milton or maybe even a Marlon. I've heard Marlon's more kind of a one-trick pony, like, kind of more of that, gap eater, kind of a big body in the middle. So I don't see him really being that 3rd guy. Maybe could totally prove me wrong, but who do you think would take that 3rd role? We'll start with you, Brandon. All right, we'll start with you, Hunter. Go ahead, Hunter. You came out fire. You might as well.
Yeah, I was ready. I think it's gonna be Milton. I just think Ridgeway. I've always really liked Ridgeway since he got here because I think he's made an impact. When it seems like whenever he's on the field, like he's making plays, like at least a big play, one big play per game. But that's the thing, his availability is the best ability, and he hasn't been able to stay on the field. I feel like he's a guy, we kind of know what he is. He kind of has his ceiling. He has his floor too. It's not really like he's anything crazy. He's consistent. So I think that could earn him a roster spot if healthy. But I think with Milton, you see the potential there. He also can rush from the edge if you need him to. And I think he's going to be a guy who they're really going to try to coach up to be that rotational third guy and possibly a future 1 or 2 at defensive tackle. So I think Milton's probably going to get that third spot, in my opinion. I agree on Marlon, kind of a one-trick pony. Definitely a guy I remember we had Anthony Rush a few years ago who was like 350 pounds, who, again, kind of filled that gap eater role. So maybe Marlon can do that as like the 4th, 5th guy if they keep 5 D tackles too. But I agree though.
Yeah, and I'm going to, once again, piggyback and just go ahead and say, we drafted this guy in the 3rd round for a reason. You're not, especially with Howie and with coaches and staff, they don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be like, oh, we drafted this guy in the 3rd round, and now he's never going to see the field. Like, we're going to develop him for 2 years. No, this is a defensive tackle you used in the 3rd round where you could have grabbed other players. He's going to play, and I feel like maybe he's not going to have a lot of pressure at like a 1st round pick, maybe not like Devontae Smith, but there's going to be some pressure there. But he doesn't need to be that number 1. You got Fletcher Cox ahead of you. You got Javon Hargrave. Hopefully he starts to turn up and maybe he gets used to this system better than last year or whatever. Hopefully he steps up. So he doesn't need to be that number 1, but I feel like he's definitely going to be the guy that comes in the rotational piece. And I love how you said moving from inside to outside. I like when Brandon Graham himself gets moved to defensive tackle. I mean, that's how we won the Super Bowl. He got that forced fumble on Tom Brady by moving him to the inside. So we need that versatility on the defensive line. So I'm going to go piggybacking with him and say Milton.
And I think this is probably the weirdest comparison, and you guys can definitely disagree with me because I don't know why I'm thinking this, but like, I feel like Milton Williams, if he lost probably 20 pounds, he could be like a Brandon Graham. Like, I don't think he's the fastest guy in the world, but he knows how to use his body to get around quick. So it's like, I could see the comparison, even on the inside, even if he stays on the inside, he has that speed advantage. He has that athleticism. I don't know. Maybe it's a weird comparison, but I just feel like he can learn from Brandon Graham and kind of take from his tool bag. So now the question, I guess, becomes, would you keep 4? Would you keep 5? Like, does it, because at the defensive tackle position, realistically, if we were to keep 5, we're looking at like between Marlon, maybe T.Y., maybe Roquan. I'm sure we have other guys I'm forgetting. Is it even worth it? Personally, I don't really think so. I think maybe Marlon's a guy that you could stash on your practice squad and go from there. But what are your thoughts on it, guys?
Keep 4. Well, I mean, you got other positions to feed, and just like what we were saying, that versatility, being able to move like a Brandon Graham to defensive tackle and putting another. So then you have Derek Barnett, Ryan Kerrigan, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox out there from the or whatever. You can interchange these players and to have just all that depth just for your defensive line, and then it's going to shorten up somewhere. Some other position's that needs that extra spot like wide receiver or something's going to have to sacrifice. So I think 4 is enough for at least DT itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like you said, that versatility, we both talked about it. Like, you keep 4 guys because you can move guys inside. And one thing you mentioned too with Jannard Avery, like, I believe Bo Wolf tweeted it out, and Gate City Sports has talked to me a ton about this too. Avery and Patrick Johnson are definitely going to have roles as stand-up rushers in the system. They'll also drop back in the coverage a little bit too, but there's going to be different fronts we deploy and like different looks we're going to go off of to incorporate their strengths into the system rather than making them fit the system. So I think having both of them and those roles as well, you kind of get some variety with your pass rush, and there's not really as much of a need, because then with that you can move guys inside as well. There's not really as much of a need to keep 5 defensive tackles per se. So.
Yeah, facts. And I don't think injury at defensive tackle is really like the a concern for me. Like I said, you can probably put somebody like Marlon on the practice squad and call them up if need be. I don't even know if you're really, or TY. I don't really think you're even going for deep every game. To be 100% honest, you're probably going to see the top 3 getting most of those snaps. So I think, that last guy will probably be your insurance. So the next position that we're going to go over is, I don't even know how to really label this position, if I'm being 100% honest, because we have a whole bunch of different types of players at these positions, but it's obviously going to be linebacker. So we have like 40 of them. So obviously the guys that a lot of people are excited about are, Eric Wilson, Alex Singleton, TJ Edwards, Sean Bradley, Davian Taylor, the guy that we picked last year, if anybody forgot. Like you guys said, Jannard Avery, and Jacoby Stevens. Shout out to Jacoby Stevens. We did interview him, and when we were interviewing him, he told us the first and really only guys that have reached out to him have been the linebacking coaches. So that seems to be where he's going to be. He's been talking a lot with Nick Rowlis, and honestly, I think he's probably the biggest sleeper in that room. Like, I think he might be exactly what we're missing at that position. The kid can hit. Like, you do a little bit of, and all of you can attest to this. We've all done interviews. So once before you do your interview, you like to, watch a little film, get a little bit more research about the guy. And I fell in love with Jacoby Stevens. Like, I liked watching his highlights, and I liked the tape on him. I liked, the measurables that I saw. There was definitely things there. And hearing him talk in other interviews, I definitely like that too. But when you see him hit, that man takes heads off. So, like, I really am excited for him. I don't know what he'll be. Maybe he can be an inside linebacker with that coverage skills as a safety. I don't know, but we'll go with the top 3, because I think this is really the other positions. We could kind of sit here and be like, all right, the top 2 guys, we kind of know who should or would be that. I mean, take your pick. Who do you think is going to win? You know what I'm saying? This is what Nick Sirianni's whole coaching career has been based off at the start. Competition, right? This is what you've been basing everything off of. So there's no other better indication of how competition will play out than the linebacking squad. So I just went on a full tangent, on a full rant, but we'll start with you, Brandon. Tell me what you think about this linebacking squad. Are there 3 guys that come out to you that you think will be starters?
I think there's at least one, and that's Eric Wilson. I think he's going to be at least one star. We picked him up in the offseason. I don't see him either losing a spot in camp this summer, or we're just being like, no, not him. I think he's going to be a guaranteed starter. And then, to be honest, I feel like the rest of the linebacking positions are up for grabs. We don't know much about Sean Bradley. We don't know about the development of Davion Taylor, because when they drafted him last year, they knew that he was a project player, that he was still raw and all that stuff. So we don't know what that development looks like. And then, like you said, the Jacoby Stevens, and it's tough. I really don't know which way you would go. Singleton looked good, but he looked better against the run than the pass. And then TJ Edwards, he looked good too, but I feel like the linebacking core as a whole struggled against the pass last year. I mean, we saw tight ends eat us up alive. I feel like every team, and the one thing that I get scared of is that I hope you're right about Jacoby Stevens. Maybe he's that next level up that we need with speed, coverage skills, and everything. It's just that Nate Gary thing leaves a scar, man. And just knowing that he was a safety and still couldn't cover a player in cover 2. Like, you were right there. You knew that you had to guard the center against what was it, the Steelers. And Claypool just goes right by him. It's like, where did your coverage skills go? What, did you just forget how to cover at that point? So that's the only thing that scars me right there. But you can't base everyone off Nate Gary. I know that. Hopefully it's way better. But I think at least to say Eric Wilson is guaranteed a starting. I feel like the other positions are up for grabs.
Now, before you get into this, Hunter, I want to ask you, because speaking of interviews, I know you always want to tell us about our interviews, but didn't you interview Patrick Johnson like last year? So I interviewed him in March. So. Yeah, so you knew this before we even knew. I think you knew that we were going to get him before we even knew we were going to get him. So he's also a guy that's been, talked about being a linebacker. So what are your thoughts about this linebacking core so far?
Man, I love Patrick Johnson, man. I love him. he's a guy who I thought was an early day 3 pick. And some people had him as a top 100 player in the draft this year. And we got him in round 7. He's a guy who I saw him do everything. I saw him rush from the interior. I saw him rush as a stand-up guy from both sides of the line. I saw him put his hand in the dirt and rush from both sides of the line. I saw him even go, when Kenny Gainwell was out in motion, go cover him in man and go blow up a screenplay to Kenny Gainwell. Not bashing Kenny Gainwell. I love Kenny. That wasn't on anything on Kenny. But my point being, like, this dude is athletic. He's a guy who can definitely go out and do a lot of things on that defensive side of the football. And he's also very passionate about special teams. Like, when I talk to him, he loves special teams. And one thing I want to mention, too, with him is when I talked to him, he told me that the notes that he took for film, his coaches used those notes for the entire defense to go off of. So this guy is an intelligent football player, even though he's coming out of Tulane, smaller school. So I am really excited about Patrick Johnson. So I'm glad you bring him up. He's a guy who I really think he can earn a roster spot. Obviously, I'm biased, but I really do think he's got a lot of the skills and the talent to do it. But going off of what Brandon said, the piggyback's been the big word this whole time. But for real, like, Eric Wilson to me is the only lock in this group. He's definitely a guy who I worry about him in the run game a little bit, just because teams do tend to run the ball right down his throat. But he's a good pass coverage guy. He's experienced. He's a guy who, he's coming off his best season as a pro thus far. He played with Gannon in Minnesota. Like, he's going to be familiar with things, and he's, the most experienced of the group. It's nice to have an experienced face in there, at least. We haven't had that in a year or two. So I'm excited for him. Yeah, after that, like, Jacoby Stevens, I'm excited to see how they use him. I think he's a guy who can definitely earn a role, because I think, for one, if you're playing cover 2, I think you can definitely put him in the middle of the field just to cover that, and if middle field's open, you don't want anything to get behind you. So try to keep that limited. I even think he could be like a QB spy on certain guys. I think he could be just a robber in the middle of the field and like cover 1 and just kind of prevent anything from coming across his face. So I'm excited. I think he's a guy who can definitely make an impact. He can play in the box, I think, too. He reminds me, I don't want to say the caliber of Malcolm Jenkins, but the versatility reminds me of Malcolm Jenkins. That's the point I want to make. And then after that, it's like Sean Bradley, like, we saw the flashes of him in coverage and run stopping as well, but he's another unknown. Davion is a guy who I really want him to go out there and just ball out, because he was a guy who I thought, I actually had him in my mock draft last year. My last mock draft, I had us taking him in 4th round. Obviously, we took him round 3, which I was not too excited about because he's so raw. And we saw him when he got on the field last year. He was obviously not ready in coverage, and he's got the athleticism. Like, he's got the speed to be a productive linebacker, but I can't trust him yet. And I want to see if he can get his IQ up to, obviously a lot of that has to do with just his lack of experience, which we've talked about a ton of the time, but I want to see him develop those instincts and get to that level, because if he can get there, I think he could be a starting linebacker for a long time, but there's no guarantee he can get there. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it's like TJ Edwards. He's a really, really phenomenal run stopper. Pass coverage, not so great. And this is the team. If you're playing cover 2 and you need someone in that middle of the field, you're not going to want TJ Edwards playing that role for the most part. So he's a guy who probably won't play every snap. And then after that, it's, I believe, the other guy who I have who could probably take a roster spot is Singleton. Like you said, Brandon, like, this dude got fooled in pass coverage a lot, but he was great in the run. So it's, what is his ceiling? What can he be? And it's just a lot of question marks around this position. But yeah, competition. So I'm excited to see which guys bring their A game come preseason and come training camp.
Facts. And I want to just read this. Brandon Hart said, what if Carson went on live and went Kwame Brown on Max Kellerman and the Philadelphia media and Howie? That would be hilarious. I would have so much respect for Carson Wentz if he did that. That would be the funniest. I would love that. I don't know why. I had to read that. But no, this linebacking core is, like I said, man, I'm excited about this linebacking core. This linebacking core is going to tell me if these coaches are just talking or if they really out here trying to develop, because this is it. This is what you talk about when you talk about open competition. You know what I'm saying? This position and probably the wide receiver position are the only 2 positions that you can really say are wide open. Maybe the cornerback 2 position, but that's just because they all aren't really that good. You know what I mean? I was trying to say that in like a nice way, but there's really no nice way. I mean, they're not all really that good. So it's really only open by default, but Excuse me. So the linebacker and the wide receiver position, I feel like you have a lot of different types of talent. So it comes down to the coaching staff and comes down to your development. So we have to pick 3 guys because that's kind of the, theme. That's the theme of this show. So I'll bite the bullet first. So you know what I'm saying? So if I look dumb, hey, you can piggyback and we all look dumb together, or you can try and look smarter. But I'm gonna go with 3 guys. I am gonna go with Eric Wilson. Okay. And I'm gonna be biased here. But it is what it is. I do think that his skill set can work out for this linebacking core. And I'm going to go with Jacoby Stevens. I do think he's going to take as a starter. I think he's going to take that spot. I think he's going to be that type of hybrid player at linebacker. He might not be necessarily that, outside linebacker guy, but he can be on the what's it called? On the line. He can be in the box. You know what I'm saying? And he can definitely cover. So I think he's one of those guys that you would wait. And even if it's not that you're running with 3 linebacker type players, like he might just have that label but not really play that position, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, right. So I do think that he can steal a spot because of that. And lastly, I'm gonna probably go Alex Singleton. I think it's a safe pick. I want to say TJ Edwards because he gave the show a shout out, but I can't be that biased. I already picked one, but so I'll go with Alex Singleton. So my 3 starters will be Alex Singleton, Eric Wilson, and then Jacoby Stevens. So I don't know who wants to go next. You guys can fight over it. I don't know.
I will. Okay,
I'll go for it. So I'm gonna go Eric Wilson. He's definitely gonna be a starter. I think we can all agree on that. And then. I'll also go Alex Singleton. I think he's a safe bet here. He's a guy who was here last year, and we saw what he could do. And I think they'll probably, he's a little more experienced, so I think they're probably going to put him out there to start. And then my last guy, I really want to go with Davion. I just think he's more of a special teams guy at this point. I think he could earn it by the end of the year, but I don't know about to start. TJ I want to go with, but if you have Wilson who's going to be playing, I believe they confirmed he's going to play the Mike and the Will. TJ will probably more so just play it on rundown. So I don't know if he's going to be a full-time starter. And then Stevens, I also think will just be more of a hybrid guy. Not that he won't get a lot of snaps. I just think he'll kind of grow into that role. So I'm going to go with Sean Bradley for my last spot. I know it's not a popular pick, but I think he's a dog. He came from Temple. They preached that Temple tough mentality there. And like we saw it, we stopped James Conner on the goal line last year. When Josh Sweat got that sack on 4th and 2 against the Saints, it was because Sean Bradley, he was covering the middle of the field, but he also dropped back deep and took on, I believe it was Emmanuel Sanders downfield and took away that throw, which was not an easy task to do if you ever watched Emmanuel Sanders run routes. So I think Sean Bradley, we saw the flashes last year. He's still got a lot of work to do and a lot of growth, but I think he just with his mentality, I think he's going to come in here. He's going to embrace that competition, and I think he might win a spot. So that's my surprise pick.
Okay. Now let me ask y'all this, because I feel like the linebacker is a really interesting spot to me. I don't know why. I'm just like really excited for that spot. I know a lot of people probably are like very interested in what's going to happen with the wide receivers, but like linebacker low key has been like one of my favorite positions to watch because I feel like they don't get enough credit for what they do sometimes. Same thing with like defensive tackles and stuff. Like they just muddy up that field and let the defensive the linebackers play. But anyways, let me ask you this. Do you think that we are a better linebacking unit than last year? Or do you think we're kind of at the same spot?
I'm going to go on a limb. Not a limb, but I'm going to say we're in a similar spot. I mean, when Nate Gary went out, when Duke Riley went out, we had similar guys that are going to be out there this year. I mean, we didn't see much of Davion Taylor. Maybe that was for a reason. We didn't see much of Sean Bradley because of development, but we did see him shine here and there. But, I mean, realistically, what did we have? We had an Eric Wilson and then a couple of the rookies. So it's really going to be – we know what Eric Wilson, what he did in Minnesota. Are the rookies going to be able to step up? Are they going to be able to have an impact, or are they coming in so hungry and knowledgeable, like you said, with the football IQ, that they're able to make an impact for this team? And back to like the other question about the defensive tackles, how many linebackers are we going to have dressed on game day? And like, so that is a big question there. So I think we're in a similar position just because I have a feeling that possibly TJ and Singleton can both be starters. And right there, if you just add Eric Wilson, we're essentially in the same spot, minus a newer linebacker.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a little bit better. Like Brandon said, a lot of it comes down to how far these young guys develop and what we see from them throughout the year. Because I do think we have some more hope than last year. Again, we had Nate Gary and Duke Riley out there starting, who, don't get me wrong, Duke Riley, I liked him on special teams, but like, not only the Claypool play, I mean, you guys remember just Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett eating us up in week 2 against Nathan Gary. So not having him was even an upgrade from the position, just getting rid of him, period. So, this is a whole Nate Gary slander show. But, I mean, yeah, I think it's a little bit better, but I agree with Brandon. Like, it does come down to the young guys. But, yeah, like you said, Brandon, if you have Edwards, Singleton, and Wilson, like that's a solid core. That's not anything, and you can definitely grow from that too. So I think that's better than what we had last year.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on the addition by subtraction, because I was so happy. We did so much this offseason, but letting Nate Gary get signed by the 49ers was my favorite offseason move. Like that gave me hope for the rest of this year. Like it really did. So we're gonna skip cornerback and we'll do them last, because I feel like that's another one. That's
I like that.
A fun topic. So we'll do safety. Obviously we got Rodney McLeod. I'm not sure when he's coming back. I've heard different things. I've heard that he could be as ready as quick as like the second, third week. I've heard even the first week. I've heard it might take him.
He said the first week. I mean,
yeah, he's saying he's ready. So we'll see. I mean, and then we obviously have Anthony Harris. We got the man, the GOAT, the myth, the legend, Marcus Epps. He's obviously not that good. Anyways, Kayvon Wallace, Andrew Adams, Graylin Arnold, who I like Graylin Arnold, and Elijah Riley. Where do you see this safety group? Like, I mean, off top, I would assume that Rodney McLeod and Anthony Harris are going to be those guys, right? Those are going to be the two that I'd hope be out there.
Yeah.
Am I right for hoping that? And then you got a bunch of guys that are probably developmental. So do you feel comfortable with the safeties that we have out there? Are you guys a little worried about the safeties? Not accounting the cornerbacks. Let's not worry about just safeties on their own.
With Rodney McLeod, I thought he was having a good season, like low-key a good season last year. He was taking plays. Even if it wasn't turnovers, he was there where the ball was. He was always in the action. Even last year, if you go back, whenever podcast we had, I was saying, Rodney played well this past weekend, like despite losing or whatnot. He was low-key having a good season before his injury. And I can only imagine that he's another one. He's getting up there in age, and he's going to want to go out on a high horse. He's not going to just want to stink it up, hopefully. So you figure if he can get back to where he was last year with the addition of Anthony Harris, that's going to be good. You got a guy that knows how to play safety, that does get turnovers. Like, I love Jalen Mills, and I mean, now he's in New England, but he was just thrown into the fire. And then he was thrown into all these different positions, to the fact that we had a guy like Marcus Epps and everything like that. So to get another veteran to play safety next to Rodney McLeod, I think that's only going to benefit us. And if we were going to ask if that position looks better than it did last year, I would say yes, if Rodney comes back healthy.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I like this position right now. Anthony Harris was a big addition. Now, I will say, and I know we're not getting the cornerbacks yet, but the big thing with his season last year was that, the cornerbacks in Minnesota didn't play very well. And, coming here, it's like, well, he's not going to have the Minnesota corners. Well, you're right. He's not going to have those Minnesota corners. He's not going to have any corners except Terry's play. But I do think that, I don't think all of last season was his fault. We've seen him play at an elite level before. He's a guy who I think is going to come in here. He's going to generate turnovers for us. He's definitely going to have an impact on this defense. And then going off of that, it depends when Rodney's healthy. Like you said, Brandon, like he's been great when healthy. I love Rodney. I think he's, for a guy who was undrafted, didn't really have the athleticism or anything that scouts were looking for. Like, he has proved everyone wrong, and he's been a big player for this defense for the past few years, especially with Malcolm leaving, taking on that leadership role. That's not easy to do. So props to him for kind of doing that last year. Even when he got hurt in 2018, I think it was, he got injured like week 3. He was still a leader on that team and was still on the sidelines giving guys notes and everything. So props to him. I just love the guy he is on and off the field for this team. And then after that, I want to see what Kayvon Wallace can do. I really do. My opinion, I think he's like ceiling. I think he's a third safety who's kind of a Swiss Army knife who can, he can blitz, hopefully cover the slot. I'm not quite sure, but I feel like I've said this a ton of times, but I feel like last year he was really only used in a limited role, in a limited capacity as well, which it was his rookie year and it was a COVID offseason, but I do want to see more of what he can do. And then I also want to see what Andrew Adams can do. I think he's a good depth piece, and I think he's a guy who you can also move around a little bit, maybe play that third safety role, because we've had guys in that third safety role before. I know Corey Graham in 2017, like that year, he was definitely big. We won't talk about the Titans game in overtime where he gave up a 4th and 16. But then when Rodney got hurt and he had to take on that second safety role, even like a guy like Trey Sullivan, who most people probably don't even remember, making some plays against the Bears in the playoffs as the third safety. So like they've been able to have success with their safety depth, and I feel good about it. The only guy who I think is going to make the roster I don't feel great about is Marcus Epps, just because he doesn't have the best range back there. We've just seen him on other teams' highlight reels way too many times. So I'm concerned about him, especially they like to play him, but it's a new coaching staff. So I don't know how much they're going to play him or not. I know the organization has liked him. He's good for an undrafted guy. I'll give him that. Good special teamer, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Epps is not my favorite. I think that was pretty obvious in the beginning, but I do feel very confident with this safety. I think you have two players that, if healthy, and I think you should never go into a season and you should never rank a team on the thought process that someone's going to get hurt, right? I mean, you
Right.
put out your best guys. So I think when we put out our best guys, our two safeties are a very good tandem. We will see what the leadership back there is. Losing somebody like Malcolm Jenkins is huge because of that leadership role. But as far as play-wise, I don't think that we've stepped back. I'm thinking, if anything, I think we might have taken a step forward because Anthony Harris is pretty young. So, I mean, this could be a great safety tandem. And then you're just basically kind of replacing Malcolm Jenkins again. Rodney McLeod becomes that older vet that is kind of that Malcolm Jenkins role. And you have, the Rodney McLeod next to him. That's Anthony Harris. That's young. That's, getting to learn under somebody that's been in there for a while. So maybe that's the formula that we go under, because we have sucked at getting safeties for a while. Like after we lost Brian Dawkins, it was a wrap. It was like, we had a good 10 years where we couldn't get we had Earl Wolf back there and thought we had a superstar. Like Patrick Chung couldn't work for us. Like Jordan Poyer couldn't work for us. Like there were good safeties that came through these doors in those times, and we just couldn't get the play out of them. Right. So maybe they figured out what they need now. So I'm hoping. But I do feel very confident. Now, who will that third guy be? I think that's a great question, and that's a great problem to solve, because I do think that we have 2 or 3 guys that can be that guy. But probably Kayvon. I think I've even seen Kayvon like at cornerback. I've seen him listed as a cornerback on some depth chart. So maybe he does just have that all around versatility. Maybe Jacoby Stevens steps back there. Who knows? Like I don't think we're at a loss for options at that safety position, because I know we've all been knocking on the door for Avonte Maddox to go back there too. So who knows? Maybe these guys listen for once. Who knows? I think there's so many options there, and they're good options. Like we could talk about other positions, like you're going to talk about cornerback in a second, but there's not many good options. There's a lot of options. There's not many good ones. I think at safety you have a lot of good options.
And I think with Kayvon Wallace, he didn't get like a fair shot in a chance. Obviously, last year was a wash year. He didn't get to play that much. And there are times where he looked okay covering tight end. There are times where it's like, hey, it is what it is. Like you're going against like George Kittle. I mean, what are you going to do about that? But he also got that comparison to, you're going to be like Brian Dawkins. You're from Clemson. You're a leader. Right. Like, there's a lot going on for him. So I'm hoping that with this year, new staff and everything, fresh start, that he's able to develop more, so he can be that number 3. And then we have that Andrews kid playing special teams and being a rotational role there too. Plus, he's from UConn, so I'm hoping he can work out and do well with the Eagles.
Who's from UConn?
Andrews.
Oh yeah, Andrew. I was like, Kayvon's from UConn?
Nah.
Yeah, Andrew Adams, bro. Andrew Adams, I think follows me on Twitter. So, bro, reach out. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to reach out, UConn, Connecticut, what up? Let's show some love, man. Get no love. Tyler Coyle is from UConn, and he went to Pittsburgh, and I think he got drafted, but he ran like a 4.3 in the 40. I know this has nothing to do with the Eagles, but yeah, I was looking at a lot of Connecticut-born guys, and I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. Connecticut has talent. All right, so we're gonna end this show with a little bit of a depression. We've talked about a lot of good players, a lot of good talent on this defense. I think I'm very excited about everybody, in every position group. I think that we're going to have a lot of talent, a lot of competition. And then we get to the cornerback room, and we have Darius Slay. ... I mean, all jokes aside, we have Avonte Maddox, we got Zach McPherson, we got Michael Jacquet, we got Shaquille Taylor, Jameson Houston, who we just picked up, Levert Hill, which sounds like an old R&B group. We have Kayvon Seymour, isn't that the guy that used to be a auto mechanic? Craig James. Kayvon wasn't even an auto mechanic. I think he did like rapping. He did like the plastic wrap that you put on your car and stuff. So anyways, at least he could have maybe changed our oil or something like that. No, he can if we win a Super Bowl, he can wrap another truck. So that's good to have. And then we got Craig James. So Darius Slay's obviously starting. I mean, do y'all have any positive things to say right now? Because I'm really reaching. I'm not confident in this group at all. I'm just not.
This group is gonna be heavily decided on how well the defensive line plays.
Yes.
Because our defensive line can't get a pass rush, or they're all stuck in the mud in a sense, and the quarterbacks get mad time. They're hit. It is what it is. I mean, the Avonte Maddox may be our second best corner, but he's like 5'9", and he's shown that when he plays on the outside, he just doesn't have it. It is what it is. Not every person that's a cornerback can play on the outside or be that cornerback too. I like Avonte Maddox more in the slot. He has the speed, so I like that. And then I know that new corner that we got, everyone was like, "Oh, he's only 5'9", but so is Avonte Maddox." So I mean, our tallest corner outside of like the other guys is Michael Jacquet. He's 6'1", and he did struggle last year. But is that because was he not getting developed? I mean, he has the size. Maybe he's just not good. I don't know. But that's a guy that if I'm going to look at this cornerback room outside of Darius Slay and I guess Avonte Maddox, that I kind of hope they can really work something with him because he does have that size. Short corners against Julio Jones is not going to work. I mean, we need him because he's the only over 6 foot guy on the squad to play well or to play decent when he doesn't come in. So
it's funny, and I don't mean to cut you off with it. It's funny that you say that because before we even did this, I was thinking to myself, like looking at it, I was like, the only people I hope will be good is Michael Jacquet and Zach McPherson because they're the only ones above 5'10". Yeah, they're literally the only ones. So it's like it makes no sense. Like
slot corners.
And look, you can be undersized and be great. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? I'm blanking right now, but I'm sure there were some undersized guys that were really good. I can't really think of any off the top of my. I mean, Asante Samuels wasn't that tall, right? Asante Samuels was what, top 5'10", I think he was. So I mean, Brandon Boykins balled out for us. That 1 year.
I like Boykin.
He had that one good year in the slot. I'll give you that. But that just goes to show that we might have some slot corners on this team.
We got about 5 of them. Go ahead.
I don't even got anything else to say about this.
Yeah, the whole Jacquet thing was frustrating because I thought he played well against Arizona. I thought he had a good game that game. And then Jim Schwartz just puts him on a press man island against Michael Gallup the next week. Like,
right.
It felt like, and the frustrating thing about that was we were up 17-0. Like, I get it. We had 4 wins. The season wasn't going well. You want to go test the guy and put him out there and say, you know what, I'm just going to throw everything I got at this team and go a little press man. That's fine. But we were up 17-0 to start that game. Washington was losing, and that happens, and you continue playing well. You win that football game, and you put yourself in the running for a playoff spot. And that's what your job is as a coach, is to go compete and go get a playoff spot and go chase a Super Bowl. Now, obviously, I know we wouldn't have won a Super Bowl. But going off of that, Jacquet, at the same time, he obviously has no press coverage skills. So we found that out last year. So obviously he's kind of limited in what he can do, and hopefully he can grow. But he's another guy who's like, yeah, he has the size and all that. So let's hope he can develop. But he's going to have to. I mean, we might have to keep him around even if it's on the practice squad again. After that, I do like Josiah Scott, the new guy we got. Like, not the longest guy. not the smallest or not the biggest guy, but I think he might start in the slot this year and surprise some people. So I'm excited to see what he can do. He's a 4th round pick last year by the Jaguars. So this is a guy who has some talent on him. And we traded Jameson Houston and a 6th round pick in 2023 for him. So it's like you didn't give up much and you upgraded from Jameson Houston. So I like that a lot. And he's a young guy. After that, I think Avante is going to end up starting on the outside again, which is just going to drive me up a wall because I've seen just about enough of him on the outside. I think we all have, like Brandon said, he's a guy who, or both of you guys said, we want to kind of see him at free safety again. We'd love to just see him stick in the slot. We know he's not an outside guy at this point. We've seen that time and time again. It's been tested. I don't know why the Eagles go in with this game plan every year. It makes no sense. # sign Steven Nelson. I saw you guys made that post about it. I'm like really trying to keep it into existence for you guys too. But going off that too, like Craig James, the organization loves him, but he made the play against Green Bay. That was great. We also saw him get torched on when he came in for 2 plays against Pittsburgh last year. Like the guy hasn't played. He hasn't been healthy. If you're going to have depth, you want a guy who can stay healthy. Craig James has not been that. He's been a gunner on special teams every once in a while. That's about it. That's all he's done. And then Mcpherson, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if he was the best guy available in the 4th round. I do think he's a dog. He's got a good mentality. But you throw that guy into the fire and make him play on the outside just like Maddox, it's going to be the same story all over again. So he's another guy who I feel like he could be a good slot. Maybe he can be an outside guy, but not maybe. I don't think in year 1 he's going to be, an elite starter or anything. I think everyone can agree on that. So I'm so worried about this position, especially, you got Shaquille Terra and Nate Neorders, but and I know they're familiar with the system, but we just don't know what they are either. It's like you're banking on these guys just developing kind of like we have when we had, a couple years ago against the Giants, that one game we won where no one knew who Kayvon was. And we had Shannon Sullivan and Devontae Bosby starting on the outside that game. Like you're banking on these guys developing when you could go out and get you could still get a decent corner in free agency who has some experience and is probably over 5'7" or 5'8", right? So this is just a frustrating position for me. I just don't know what to expect right now. Well, I know what to expect, but I don't know who's going to be there out there to fulfill what I'm going to what I expect to happen. So, like you said, the defensive line is a big part of it.
Yeah, I'm at the point, and I even said this last year, man. I would rather see Zach Mcpherson go out there and be absolute trash at that second cornerback position than go out there and watch Avante Maddox be absolute trash at that cornerback position. Like, let's see what we got in this young guys. Like you said, to your point, we know what we got in Maddox, man. We know his floor. I mean, if it becomes something that we're an actual competitive team and you're saying, look, Avante just gives us a little bit more and that little bit more can win us more games, that's different. But if we're not going to be a competitive team, go out there and play these young guys. Go out there and try, I hate to say it, man. It's not the smartest thing to do, but sometimes you got to try and fit that, round peg into the square hole and just hope that at some point it fits, because that's the position that you put yourself in. Once you didn't. And to go to the draft, did I think that Zach Mcpherson was a panic pick? Yes, I did. I thought they saw that, hey, we went maybe a little bit too early on defensive tackle, and now there's no more cornerback. So we got to go. Yeah, shout out to him. I mean, he wanted. I guess they were going defensive tackle either way. I guess it was between him and that boy from Florida. But if it was Florida, I don't even remember where it was. But either way, I mean, I think they panicked. I think they saw all those cornerbacks come off the board, and they went crazy. So it is what it is. You put yourself in a position that now you have to. You made your bed. You got to lie in it. These are the players that you want to go out there with at the cornerback 2 position. Have fun and figure it out. But I will say, after we've done this, because obviously me and Hunter did the offensive side. Now all of us have just done the defensive side. Cornerback is the only position that really makes me sit here and get really nervous, because I don't even see a future in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least with everything else, we can see this year we're developing them and then we move on. I don't even see a cornerback on this roster that I'm like, we can make this guy a dog. You know what I'm saying? Like, We don't have that. So it's very nerve-wracking. But I want to ask you.
To be fair to Devontae Maddox, he's been thrown all over the defense since he got here. So he hasn't had a chance to really develop in one spot. If it was that nickel corner, slot corner, cornerback 2, whatever. He's been safety. He's been all over the place due to injuries and because I feel like why am I already drawing a blank on his name? Jim Schwartz. See, once they leave Philly, I forget about him. But Jim Schwartz, I feel like he just got happy with Maddox and like it felt like he could put him anywhere and like didn't really develop him to be in one certain spot. So maybe this year that's a chance for him to develop more. I don't know.
That's a great point. So let me ask you guys this. Before we end this up, we'll end it up on this note. So obviously you saw the hashtag Steve Nelson. You know, there's a lot, and we've talked about Gary Conley. You know, there's other guys out there that I'm obviously probably drawing blanks on right now. But there are cornerbacks out there, like you said, justly, but it's kind of the truth, that are over 5'8". So we can go out there and get probably a cornerback number 2. Is there a guy out there that you think the Eagles definitely need to go after? Is Steve Nelson the guy? Do you think we can afford to go get a real cornerback 2?
I don't know if we can afford it unless we make some moves with like Zach Ertz or something. I just can't see it unless they have money and they can figure out long-term stuff like, oh, we'll have you here for 4 years and spread it out, blah, 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 blah. They would have to surprise me. I feel like we went into this offseason knowing that we really couldn't sign people like that. And the fact that we got Eric Wilson, Anthony Harris, and a couple other dudes, like that was a surprise. I didn't even think we would get that. I thought we were going to be so screwed that we were just going to rely on the draft and that's it. So if we can get a Nelson, hey, I'm all for it. I'll be hyped because that would at least give us some peace of mind for that cornerback position. But other than that, we're just going to have to really rely on Darius Slay and co.
Yeah, honestly, and looking at the free agent list right now, like there's not many. A lot of them would just be veteran additions for like a year or two, and you don't want to break the bank for them. Like a Rashad Breeland, like I'm not really trying to bring him in. He's not really anything special. You could bring Darryl Worley back. I mean, he was an Eagle for like a week until he was found in his car or whatever.
Everybody was like, did you see when I did the top 3 cornerbacks I wanted? I said Darryl Worley because he was a young name, and I totally forgot that he got arrested, and people were coming for my life.
People change.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, what's his name? Was it Aldon Smith on the Cowboys who got another shot this year? And he balled out. So hey, who knows? But yeah, like a Josh Norman, he's older now. I'm not trying to bring him in. Richard Sherman's still pretty good. So I just don't really think there's a need for him anymore. So not a need for him, but like for him specifically, I just don't think it'd be the right time. So like Brandon said, like if Steven Nelson comes here, and, you know, we don't have to break the bank for him, I'm all for it. But as much as I would like a guy in free agency, like looking at it, and you could always bring Roby Coleman back, but another slot corner for the team, him or LeBlanc. But I'll take LeBlanc any day over NRC. God. Yeah, for real.
In the league.
What a disappointment. Thank the Lord that was a 1-year deal. But yeah, there's not a ton of guys out there right now who I'm like, oh, we should definitely go out and get this guy. Now that I look at it, maybe Emmanuel Mosley is still out there. I forgot about him. He's young, and I forget if he might be a slot corner too. I'll look up his measurables real quick just because I'm curious. Because yeah, he's 5'11". He's 184, but it's still, hey, any guy's over 5'7", 5'8" right now. Like that's my kind of breaking point. But yeah, there's not too many guys right now who it's like I'm breaking the bank for him. Maybe a couple guys get cut before the season starts. Maybe, like you said, post June 1st, maybe a couple guys get cut. Maybe a trade for someone. I don't know. But yeah, facts, Taylor.
Yeah, I agree, Taylor. He was trash. I mean, so we've done it now. We went through the offense. We went through the defense. I'll post some of the highlights on our channels and stuff like that, so you guys can, if you watch us on Philly Podcast, we'll go over
do special teams now.
Now we got to do special teams. So how do you guys feel? I mean, offense is done, defense is done, going over all these players. We went pretty in depth. Like I said, I think going over all these positional groups, the only positional group that really makes me grit my teeth and be like, this is going to be hard to watch is the cornerback position in general, realistically. But what are you guys thinking? How do you guys feel about this roster going into 2021?
I feel good about it. Like I said from the beginning, I'm optimistic now. Once you get to hear people talk and you see their demeanors and everything like that, it doesn't look like, or it doesn't seem like it's going to be a wasted season. It doesn't look like these older veterans that we have, Jason Kelsey, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, these guys are not going to just want to waste their time away. And when they're coming off serious injuries, especially like Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks, they're not going to just want to come in just to be like, oh, we're going to stink it up. They're going to want to win. They're going to want to compete. Jalen Hurts, unless he's just a quote king, he doesn't seem like someone that wants to sit back and just lose. So I have a good feeling about this team. I think we're being slept on. I think they think we're going to be last in the division. And you know what? Let them think that. That's less pressure on us. When there's no pressure on the Eagles, that's when we prove everyone wrong, and it happens pretty much all the time.
He is the quote goat. Though. He is like I don't know where he's getting these quotes from, bro. Like that's how you know he's from the South. Like his parents are from the South because they got some quotes for that ass. He's helping me so much with this T-shirt thing, man. God bless it. I'm loving it. But go ahead.
Honestly, but yeah, like I feel good about this team. You know, this is definitely going to be a growth year. Like I said, we're going to find out what all these guys are made of and you know who they really are as players over the next year or two, and just getting an idea of where these guys are in their development, what they can be in the future, that allows you, if you have a solid year this year, next year you could possibly we're going to have some more money. You could make that big splash in free agency or in a trade to bolster those few holes on your roster that are left. And then, you know, you go in 2023 or 2022 and 2023. You kind of just go for it. And even this year, like we finished the season with 4 or 5 divisional games at the end of the year. We can definitely get this done. Like this division is not good in my opinion and everyone's opinion. But I really don't think. I think the Cowboys, they always find a way to screw things up. I don't think they're anything special. Their defense does not scare me. I know a lot of people think they bolstered it. But Kelvin Joseph. What was even his nickname, Joe? I forgot. I tagged him.
Boss Man Fat.
Like anyway. Whatever. That's the whole thing. But I thought they reached for a few guys. They have a great linebacking core, but they still have no trenches. They still really have a lot of work to do in the secondary there. And their offense, again, like I said, they're always their team who they always go behind by 20, 30 points, and then they stat pad and, come back in the game. But you got the Giants. The Giants, I definitely think they bolstered their team, but it all comes down to Danny Dimes, and he's not proven yet. I think he can prove himself, but we have yet to see it. So then you get Washington, who they don't even have a quarterback, and they're, without a quarterback, there's going to be some close games. We always play these teams close. It comes down to who can close out these games, and if we can learn by the end of the year just how to close out those games, kind of like 2016 when we struggled closing out games going into 2017, that'll be big going into next season. So I think this is a team. There's a lot of winnable games here. These young guys, they're hungry. Let's see what they can do. I think Jalen Hurts is very hungry, and I'm excited to see what he can do. I feel really good about this team just in the future. This year, I know we're not going to be necessarily contender, but I feel good about the position of the team right now and how we're setting up.
Facts. And I said this in the beginning of last season. And Brandon, I think you were on the show when I said this. I was like, I can deal with losing if there's a end goal, if there's an end game to all this losing. I'm cool with that. Just I want to know that there's kind of a plan. So for the first time, and I like Doug Peterson, man. Look, at the end of the day, Doug Peterson got us a Super Bowl, and I don't hate him. There was something that happened. Maybe it was, him getting a little too big for his britches. Maybe it was Howie. We don't know. He's not here anymore. But after the Super Bowl, I didn't feel like there was an end game anymore. I think that it was kind of, we're here and this is where we want to be, so we don't have to necessarily get here anymore, if that makes sense. So it's like, I don't see that happening. Hopefully, I'm hoping with a little bit of success that this coaching staff doesn't lose their hunger, that Jalen Hurts doesn't start missing meals. But, look, you said this perfectly. If we get to the point where it's the trade deadline and we look at, because the beginning of our schedule is very, very hard. That's where I think our if we can get out of the first, 6-7 games with a positive record and look good, we might have something here. And that might turn us very quickly from a selling team trying to get assets to hey, we got 3 first rounds. You know, is there any quarterbacks out here that are kind of upset with their situation? Are there any, you know, wide receivers that might want to come over here and help us win something? Who knows? The NFL happens so quick. You know what I'm saying? And when you have a team that nobody knows, we've seen it with the Ravens. We've seen it with the 49ers, that you go from nothing to great back to nothing within a season. You know what I'm saying? Like we're seeing it with the Dolphins. Things turn around very quickly. You know, if you have the right front office, we start with the Eagles. We can keep going down the list. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, you know, what we have to see what this is going to what's going to happen with this team when the pedal meets the. I don't have any good. I need to go talk to Jalen and get some good quotes because I was really trying there and I was really reaching. But either way, I feel like we're all very excited, and I think there's reason to be. But either way, I think we're going to end this right now. Be sure to come check me and Brandon out on Philly the podcast. Be sure to go check my guy Hunter out at Philly Insider Podcast. When I tell you, bro, he is doing some incredible interviews. I love having him on. Me and Brandon was talking about before the show. We love having you on the show. You're a lot of fun to talk about. We're gonna have to bring you on Philly the podcast and do this more often. But either way, I appreciate everybody that checked in. Be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe. Shout out to A2D Radio and Tom. Mad love. Anything you guys want to say before we get out of here? Brandon said, "No, I'm good. I'm I'm going to the mall."
Run, baby, run. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Hey,
I love it. That's the perfect way. So, all right, y'all know what it is. But other than that, it is Fly Eagles Fly, and we are out, Chad. Peace.